And welcome to the Daily Space Weather. We've got a new sunspot group at a quite low latitude down here in the southeast. It has the kind of fields capable of producing significant solar flares. Otherwise, pretty low levels of activity on the sun. We'll show you some close-ups of that. First, let's take a look at the view from Lagrangian Point 1, the Discover LASCO C2 and C3, the SOHO spacecraft. The SOHO suite of instruments on the Discover spacecraft, yes. And so everything's pretty clear out there. View of Mercury here on the C3. Here's a close-up of the southern hemisphere. Again, a significant sunspot group there. And here's a fantastic zoomed out composite of ionized helium and iron. It's 304 and 171 angstroms. And if you're wondering where things are located, here's some astrography for you. Here's the locations of planets and so on. We're approaching a new moon. Here's where things will be in 1 week. And here's a star chart for the day. Jupiter and Saturn and the moon all up there near the ecliptic. The radio flux, I believe it's at 76 now. Expect this to rise a bit, but not too much, as that sunspot's pretty close to the limb. Here's a 1-year chart of the radio flux, the black line. Red line below it is sunspot number. That's a 1-year chart. So radio flux still listed as 75 here. Don't be surprised to see that rise. Don't be surprised to see new sunspots showing up as well. Anyway, no major solar storms on the forecast from NOAA. Looking at global seismicity here, we did see one nearly 6 magnitude earthquake. A bit of an uptick here in seismic activity, although nothing too major. A 5.2 at Iceland. Are you still at Iceland, Kurt? Kurt Begamon. Are you still at Iceland? Let us know if you felt that earthquake, or if you watched the videos. As space weather does affect cyclists, we use GPSs, for example. Also a 5.0 struck New Zealand. Shout out to Eddie Dawkins if you're watching. How's the youngin'? All right. Also a deep quake at Japan there, a 4.3. Deep quake at Bolivia, a 4.6. Romagna. Count Dracula, if you're watching the video, leave us a comment. There was also a 4.5 at Guam. Shout out to U.S. military personnel. 4.8 at depth at Peru, so 2 deep quakes there in South America. New Zealand also saw a 5.6. That's actually north of the island there. Probably not felt at the island in the Kermadec Trench. Yes, the Kermadec Trench. I know some Oceania geography, folks. Mid-Atlantic Ridge saw a quake very far south. Kurilsk, Russia. Kurilsk, Russia. I don't know. I hope that's pronounced that way. Yes. South of the Kuril Islands, I believe that is. And the largest of the past 24 was just a few hours ago here at Tual. Tual, Indonesia. I love the name of that. Tual. Let's take a look at the location of the largest quake. There is that, and let's move on. And it looks like another volcanic uptick here as we have thermal imagery of Stromboli, which is making me hungry for a calzone. Why have a Stromboli when you could have a calzone? Anyway, check it out. The Strombolian volcano here. The Stromboli volcano, for which Strombolian eruptions is named. And that's thermal imagery up there. And by the way, we're going to be getting a thermal camera here for the videos. Yes, it'll be another thing we'll be doing on the channel eventually. Some thermal videos. So Etna also producing lots of sulfur dioxide, and check it out. You can actually see it on windy.com. Here's Etna's sulfur dioxide plume crossing the Ionian Sea and indeed the Mediterranean. And they've got a free mobile app also you could actually purchase if you like. Windy.com doesn't pay us to say it. So Etna and Stromboli both erupting. Also Suwanose Jima. Seems like it'd be a great time to go on vacation to the Mediterranean. The lovely summer, get to see a live active volcano. Seems like a fantastic time. Ibu on Halmahera, Indonesia, exploding. Flight level 070 over that. Dieng, I never heard of it. It's produced a mud flow. Not good. Hopefully nobody was in the path of that. Mud flows less than optimal, as that stuff is quite massive. Sangay, volcanic ash not seen in satellite at Sangay or Ecuador. We don't know if they're erupting. Don't assume they're not. Sabancaya, intermittent puffs, 23,000-foot ash plume over Peru and Nevados de Chilean. Effusive explosive eruptions. Continue at unchanged to moderate levels. It's actually a pretty modest ash plume there, like 2,000 feet of altitude. And no matter how bad things get, we'd like to remind you to not pole vault the caldera. You may be having a bad day, or you may be having a good day. And if either of those things causes you to decide to pole vault a caldera, change your mind. Go visit smashamash.com instead. Check out our links. Check out our merch. It's fantastic. The print quality is ridiculous, and the designs are, you be the judge. Anyway, there's the X-ray flux for the past 3 days. Expect to see this a little bit more active in the coming days with that new sunspot. Proton flux, nothing going on there. And part of the reason why we try to forecast coronal mass ejections is so that we can tell you about these events before they happen. Although flare-based coronal mass ejections are quite difficult to forecast, so we're getting into some more difficult territory here, to say the least. Goes magnetometer over the past 3 days as we get into some serious heliophysics here. Solar magnetic field. So here's the 3-day chart of that, and it's looking pretty smooth here, actually. Although it's going to get a little bit less smooth as Earth is just moving right now. Excuse me. Earth is just moving right now into a South Pole-oriented current sheet. As you see the latest image here. So by tomorrow, the Earth will most certainly be in a South Pole-oriented current sheet. Shown here in red, by the way. There's the... Come on, Epic Pen. You can do it. That's a South Pole current sheet. All right, let's try again. South Pole current sheet. North Pole current sheet. South, and this one's north. Here's a line of sight view of the same data. Kind of shows you the visualization of the way the heliospheric current sheet is aligned to the poles. And the blue line gives you insight into the BZ portion of the solar wind data. I won't go in depth into that. Here's the coronal hole line of sight plot. And once again, I would note that there are actually 2 trans-equatorial coronal holes right over here. There's a north one and a south one. I think the north one may have largely retracted here. So both of those coronal holes might have actually sort of dissipated. although there still is some indication of the south one. So bringing up the latest image there, yeah, there's certainly still a South Pole coronal hole there over on the east. It's almost looking like it doesn't want to rotate with the sun, but anyway. The sun's B field is shown here in blue. Continuing on, here's our flare monitor. And the most likely place to see a flare is certainly in this area, that low latitude sunspot. And the closer it gets to the limb, the more likely it is to produce a large flare. Here's a 3-day chart of global geomagnetism. And the current KP index is down to 0. Calm conditions, very calm conditions. Moving to the real-time solar wind. And we've just seen a little uptick here in the density. Could it be another coronal hole wind stream? It doesn't particularly look like a CME strike. Although there has been a signal here in the past 4 hours. A tiny signal in the solar wind temperature, a phi angle shift, a BT/BZ shift, and an uptick in the solar wind density. A very modest uptick, though, as it's only 5 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed currently about 384 kilometers per second. Everything else fairly uneventful there. Here's 4 hours of a visualization of the pressure based on the space weather modeling framework. Pretty homogeneous pressure here around the Earth over the past 4 hours. A small increase in the magnetotail side in pressure. Here are ground perturbations. And this can give you insight when we have geomagnetic storms into where things like power outages are most likely to happen. And also indications of where the Earth's poles are located. And like the last frame, that's 4 hours of data. Only modest changes to the Earth B field or geospace delta B. Congratulations on realizing our channel exists. Please visit our links, support the channel. We're also on Twitch, twitch.tv/smashamash, and BitChute, bitchute.com/smashamash, and we'll be doing more exclusives over there coming soon. Once again, congratulations on realizing our channel exists. Our cosmology segment today will be a separate video. So make sure you join us for that when we premiere it. Next, looking at charging hazards here. We don't see any. Your satellites are looking good. Here's a 1-year chart of the earthly electron flux. This is measured at the F ionosphere layer, by the way. I believe it's the GOES-16's measurements, but in any case, we're in a moderate range here. As you can see, no warning levels here over the past 3 days. And warning levels are at 1,000 particles per negative squared centimeter. Here's the forecast. Excuse me. Here's the forecast for relativistic electrons. And I would tend to agree with this small downtick as the forecast. That's the NOAA forecast. This is a diagram of the Van Allen belts. I like it. I show it daily so people know what we're looking at. There's the inner. And there are the outer Van Allen belts. And here's the total electron content forecast, a visualization of the electron density out there. And that's all the way from geosynchronous orbit to your GPS handset. A little bit of chaos happening here in the southern hemisphere once again. Only minor anomalies, though. Some relatively high electron flux nighttime regions happening around the equator as well, like the Indian Ocean. Fairly organized electron belts at the moment. Here's another diagram to show you where things are before we show you the ionogram, the animated ionogram. The F ionosphere is located at about 300 kilometers of altitude, and here is the ionogram. This one's courtesy of Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology. Shout out, drop us a line. We'll interview you for the channel. And there are all kinds of settings for this. We just show the global ionogram. It should be 1 day of data at 2 hours per second. There we go. That's readable now. And everything looking fairly normal here, actually. A little bit less anomalous. A little bit of anomaly here west of South America once again. And let's actually show the anomaly. Since we've seen about 2 weeks of it, let's bring up a different animation for once. First, the latest image. There's the latest image. That's 9 o'clock. And here's the anomaly from the 30-day median. So the area we've been citing is primarily down here. You will see some anomalies there. And that's probably where the South Atlantic anomaly is. Word on the street is that it's moving across the South American continent to the west. And you can see some evidence of a South African anomaly also, right around here. Another weaker spot in the magnetosphere. Anyway, here's the 9 o'clock image. Moving on. To invite everybody to our forum, smashamash.com/forum. If you weren't aware that it exists, there's all kinds of interesting stuff there on cosmology, heliophysics, Earth and geophysics. There's a free-for-all forum that has a massive coronavirus section. Go check it out. It's over 30 pages long. So here's the latest imagery. There's the solar intensity gram, this new sunspot. The leading umbra already faded, decreasing the likelihood of major solar flares. There it is in magnetogram. Intensity gram, magnetogram. So we'll be keeping an eye on this, and when I say ion, oh well, the pun is intentional. Here's just the southern hemisphere, since it's where the action is, in just 171 angstroms. My personal favorite wavelength. We'll get a little closer here. Here is the extreme close-up in composite, 171 plus magnetogram. Fantastic view of most of the lifespan of that sunspot. Actually, that's 24 hours of data. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Congratulations on realizing our channel exists. If you've got ideas for our 2,000 subscriber special, leave us a comment and let us know. And may that solar wind be at your back.